we're back in Providence. I would imagine this city is set in southern Louisiana, maybe a bit to the west of where current day New Orleans sits. There's a theory that the Mississippi River might eventually change its course more to the west and empty into the Gulf of Mexico in a different place. So as we create this build, I have another build over in City Skylines 1, which I've been working on, and it's been inspired a lot by Carthage and Kansas City and some of the places that I appreciate in Arkansas and Missouri. This city, a little bit inspired by some of the vibes of what I've seen when I went to New Orleans. I wanted to make something that was different. And so here we are. And we're at a point where a fair amount of the city has been created. Of course, it's still very new. There's a lot more we can do with it, but I want to kind of slow down the outward expansion and start focusing on quality of life right here in the city we have already created. And there's so much we can do to take this really rough looking draft and turn it into something elegant and unique and iconic. Real cities, they have their quirks, they have their rough edges, they have their places that just don't necessarily make a lot of sense. But when you're on the ground, they just click and you think, wow, that's such a amazing city. And I think New Orleans really stood out to me that way when I went to visit earlier this year. I realized there's so many weird roads going different directions and it's so confusing, and yet it really stood out as a very cool place. The kind of a place that maybe isn't safe sometimes, maybe isn't perfect sometimes, but it's a place where you'd want to go explore down all sorts of different roads and see what is around the next corner. And that's what makes a really special city what it is. All of those unique, interesting things. So that's what we're trying to do. But first of all, it looks like we have a problem here. Looks like we've got some air pollution. Air pollution caused primarily by our enormous landfill. Well, maybe not enormous. Anyway, landfill. And we need to do something about that. So I was thinking maybe it's time for some new garbage processing facilities. Now, I don't know if we can get away with just having recycling facilities. Possibly. We could put the recycling facility or even a garbage incinerator way out over here. But we could also be a little more forward thinking and look at our wind map. Wind is going this direction, so anything we place upstream of the wind is going to kind of create problems for us. So I'm thinking what we're going to actually do is create a downstream garbage processing facility. And what better place than right out here? We'll put it kind of near this power line, and it'll be nice and disgusting. So people can just think about what a nasty city they live in as they look at the garbage incineration plant over here on the edge of town. But they can feel a little bit better because they will know that they're not living downwind from it. And that's really what matters, right? Like, it's kind of like how if you ever drink bottled water, like the bottled water, you think, oh, well, it's a nice bottle of water. So refreshing. And then you think about the turtles that will die because of the water that you were drinking when the bottle goes out to the ocean and floats around and kills turtles and stuff. Like, you know, it's one of those things. Circle of life. And as long as your bottle of water is nice, then you don't have to think so much about the dead baby turtles. So that's going to be kind of like that. And then, as you can imagine, if this is a real place, it'd probably be sort of polluting the water over here, which is why we're going to put our garbage area a little bit more inland, because we don't want to have brown water. That would not be cool at all. But we're going to do an incinerator plant. I'm going to put it right over here. It's going to be very, very cool. So let's see how that works. Maybe we'll put it right here in the middle of this block, or we could put it on the corner. No, we'll put it right there. And look at that. Our city is becoming a majestic industrial powerhouse. And then we will take this garbage dump that we already had, and we will magically move it across town. That's the nice thing about the relocate button in this game. You can completely move something from where it was to where you want it to be, even if that means teleporting tons and tons of garbage magically from one area of the map to another. So, anyways, let's see what we got here. Why was my footprint here doesn't quite align? Not quite sure why. That's all right. There's more than one ways to, well, they say more than one way to skin a cat, but that's a very cruel thing to say. And I have no qualms against cats, so we won't use that term to describe what we're doing here. Anyway, there's more than one way to draw a garbage dump zone. Oh. And there we have it. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? The garbage right there. I think I've always thought garbage was kind of interesting. When you go to the dump and you see the garbage just kind of all out and about in piles, bulldozers digging around in it and stuff. Really is, you know, kind of peculiar how much garbage we make. We're going to bring the recycling facility over here. And I think we'll put that right there. So we just have this nice kind of trashy part of town. And we're going to be able to generate some electricity with our garbage. So it's going to be actually really good for the city to have so much garbage. So question is, how are we going to connect that power line? I don't know. I think we're gonna do something a little bit like that. That ought to do the trick. And then we're going to do another transformer station here, because as we burn the garbage, it's going to be transformed into power and light. So look at that. What a beautiful, beautiful trash heap there. Are we running low on water? What's going on here? Water availability. It's not what it should be. So we'll do a water pumping station here. have to draw a little road to connect it. Kind of a crooked little road, but that's all right. So now our people have water, except for the ones over there that don't have proper plumbing, I guess. So what are we going to do about that? Water treatment plant. We'll go back to the progression area and see about getting ourselves a water treatment plant unlocked. That'd be a good call. Because right now, our entire city is dependent on this sewage pipe pouring sewage into the river, and I suppose it's time for us to stop that with a real modern water treatment plant. And that can also go here into our new trash area. So we'll put the water treatment plant, though, a little bit more kind of not right next to the garbage, because I don't know. I don't want to pollute the drinking water. So we'll put that right there. That'll be fine. Looks pretty reasonable. And then that air pollution will start to go away. We can actually delete this sewage outflow pipe so it stops polluting the river. No one wants to move to a first-class city that's got a muddy brown sewage-filled river in it. Well, maybe they do. I mean, if you ever been to New Orleans, you know the river's not exactly aqua blue. So, it's one of those things. Mississippi River is a really beautiful place sometimes, but it's a pretty filthy, nasty river, though. Have to say that. As I make this video, got done with my day of work, and I was thinking, well, what am I going to do? And you know how it is. You get tired after a day. You don't even feel tired until you think about spending some time doing some gaming or whatever, and then you realize, oh my goodness, you know, just gotta find the motivation to get in there and you know, start doing some stuff. And then when you do it, then it kind of starts to click, and then you kind of feel a little more engaged, a little more interested, and that's kind of how it goes. But you really sometimes you gotta use a little bit of willpower to get yourself off your rear end and go, you know, go do something. Even if it's something that you enjoy and something that you really want to do, you still have to get yourself motivated and then go do it, even when you're feeling kind of a little bit, you know, tired maybe, or just you know, like you wanna spend some time scrolling through random things and maybe not do the stuff that was on the bucket list, right? But we are not going to allow ourselves to be like that. We are going to do something really cool here. We're going to build a city which is unlike any other city that I have ever made before in City Skylines. And it's going to be a city with a great story to tell. That's the challenge. And we're going to have fun while we do it. And great stories are the foundation for great cities. Because really, it's not about just roads and buildings. It's about the people who live in them. It's about the history behind them. It's about all those things that kind of, I guess, give people a sense of place, purpose, and identity. That's what it's all about. So as we build our city, the goal is going to be to have some fun and tell some stories along the way. That's why it's important to ask questions like, where is this city? Like, what's it all about? Like, what is the setting? Why was this city built? And we're telling the story of a city that kind of was built around a river delta. And you can see that in the topography of the land. Imagine if the Mississippi River took a different course and an entirely new city was built that never existed before. What might it look like? Well, I imagine if there was a large city in the lower Midwest, and this city is kind of like a reimagination of New Orleans, then the industries here are probably going to be all around tourism and leisure, probably healthcare. And then, of course, we'll have the industry that you would expect to see in a coastal city, because it's all about the traffic that comes in from the ocean. And interestingly, here on this map, we do have the part of the map facing the ocean. Then we also have this part of the map that's a little more inland, facing the river. And if you think about how history unfolded in the Mississippi River Delta, you would know that you do have the big ports that would wind up here in the Gulf, and then you have the historical part of cities' growth that was the result of a strategic importance of the great river that the cities were built on. So that's kind of what we're imagining might be the case here. So we have the problem here of air pollution, and unfortunately, it just ain't really going away very fast. Hopefully, it'll eventually go away. It does look like it's starting to clear up. It just hasn't cleared up quite yet. But you can see this spot here where the garbage dump used to be is starting to clear up real nice. And so I think probably won't be too much time until those air pollution bubbles go away. We'll be able to lay that to rest. And we have a little bit of noise pollution, and we got the problem of healthcare crisis. So I guess we should be looking at our hospitals and seeing what can we do, because some of these folks are ailing. So we'll do the French Medical Center, and we'll put it just right here, kind of in proximity to these high rises that we built. And it looks kind of nice there. Pretty respectable. We're gonna have to figure out something about the traffic though, because look at that. There is a ambulance right there stuck in traffic along with some bicycles. And I do have to point out though, look at these bicycles. They're all like riding side by side. That's pretty cool. The bikes don't just go single file. They will be 3 riding side by side in some cases. So I do think that's pretty cool. And the other issue though is going to be we gotta fix this traffic problem, because look at how jammed up our streets are starting to be. People are milling around and they're all stuck in traffic jams. And as that happens, continues to happen, then emergency services and things like that are not going to be able to get where they need to go. So we're going to have to kind of think about how we're going to get our act together. Like we can't be a tier 1 city if we're going to be letting our people have such a low quality of life when it comes to their ability to get around. So maybe we'll expand our knowledge of roundabouts, build a few of those, and we'll unlock large roads and parking areas, because all of that seems like it's probably in our interest to figure it out. Now, I can't do a large roundabout right there. I wonder if I could do a medium roundabout. I cannot. So I think what we're going to do here is just delete that little road there. Some people won't like it, but, you know, that's how progress goes. And that building there, that's going to have to go away too. Because, you know, progress. But that's going to help a little bit with our traffic flow right there, and looks a whole heck of a lot more cool than the way it was moments ago. Now, I think maybe we should do more of these kind of buildings. What is that? That is trying to see what kind of a zone that is. Mediterranean heritage, medium density housing. So let me see. So many different kinds of housing. Lose track of it. Yep, there we go. So we're gonna upgrade that residential block with some slightly more high density development. And again, we have the weird zoning issues. Makes it kind of hard to sometimes make blocks the way you want them to be. But that's all right. That's all right, because sometimes when you focus on plan mindfully within the constraints of the game, you wind up doing interesting things that you might not otherwise have done. Kind of like how now we have these little pedestrian paths and a little park in the middle we never would have had if we didn't have to kind of maybe fight the game a little bit to create the city blocks that look the way we want them to. And I think that's going to actually look pretty nice. Nice little blocks. And we want to have that sense of different heights. Like, I don't want everything to be high density, surrounded by other high density. I want to have these, you know, kind of moments of contrast where you see that stepping up. Like, you see tall buildings and you see little houses and you see open spaces. Yeah, that neighborhood looks kind of nice. I like these little blocks. Little blocks, I think they work pretty well. But the other issue we have, though, is still too much traffic congested over here. And so I think we're going to have to go back to the tile purchasing menu and buy a little bit more of the land around the freeway so we can have another entry point and exit point, because we don't want to have everyone all bottlenecked going into the middle of town in the same place. So next thing we're going to do, we're going to expand this road. And add another freeway entrance. And we're making every block here exactly 297 yards square, because that's going to be our standard farm parcel dimension. And again, that's the reason why we're doing our farm parcels this way, is because we're imagining that probably the territory around the city would have been divided up and then sold to farmers, or maybe given free to them under the contract that they would have to develop the land. And so you would divide up land into squares, equally sized squares, which would then be given out to people. And then as the city grows, the squares start to be eaten up by the city and they start to get filled in. But it leaves the city with this really identifiable square grid that defines its layout long after the farms are no longer part of the urban plan. And I could do a big, imposing kind of a highway entrance there, but the truth is a lot of highway entrances are not particularly interesting. They're just little simple entry points where people can get on and off the freeway. They're not, you know, not like going to Dallas or something. And then as traffic gets busier and the city grows, we can always return to our highways and make them a little bit better in terms of how they're designed. But for now, we at least want to make sure people are able to get in and out of town without hitting an absolutely ridiculous, crazy amount of traffic. So I'm reasonably happy with that for the time being. If I want to nitpick, I would say we need to have a little bit better lane hierarchy there. Make part of that freeway a 3-lane so people have a little bit of room to merge. I actually like the way that looks. It's not overdone, but it's elegant and functional. We can also add, if we want to, roundabouts here. That's going to help with traffic flow quite a bit. Except there, got something weird going on. There we go. That's better. I suppose it would probably make sense to let this road cut through so that folks have an easier way to get into town. That's going to really improve traffic flow a lot, because all that traffic that's getting off the freeway and going straight into the middle of town is no longer going to be getting bottlenecked over here. So that is good stuff. And then I'm thinking we'll do the same thing over here, because more points of entry to be able to get on the freeway are going to be doing nothing but good for us. But let's do something a little different here. Let's see if we can make our exits a little bit unique here, because I don't want every single one to feel the same. So we're gonna just kind of make it, you know, have some fun, make it creative, do something that I have not done before. Just having some random fun here. Not super sure what it's going to look like when I'm done. But that is one nice thing about City Skylines 2. You can totally just be creative and it'll turn out pretty good. Maybe I don't think I want that one to go so far out. So I want all of these interchanges to kind of come together and merge into one. So we'll do something a little more like that. All right, now we're starting to get somewhere. I've been thinking about how many different games there are out there to play. It's just crazy, isn't it? How many cool things there are to do. Not even just gaming, man. Like, so much stuff. Like, isn't it? It's like that Disney song. There's more to be done than you'll ever be able to do. More to be seen than can never be seen. Makes you kind of wonder, like, we get so bored with life sometimes, we get frustrated about things, and you wonder sometimes, like, you know, do you get frustrated with life because life is frustrating, or is it just because, you know, like it's all you sometimes? It has nothing to do with life not being good enough. It just is. Maybe we get overloaded with so many interesting things to do and stuff. We don't really know how to internalize all of it, so life is just like one big episode of decision paralysis. Trying to get that overpass to be a little smoother. All right. Maybe that's the point where I say, all right, yeah, that's good enough. And then we're going to have two-lane highway, and we can there we go. So now we have a pretty cool, interesting, imperfect, but peculiar highway entrance there. kind of hard to get the corners to be just right. I guess it doesn't have to be perfect, does it? That's good enough. I'll be fine. But that's gonna be a big help to us. We got a reasonable amount of connectivity going on now. We got 4 highway exits. So hopefully people won't be so congested that they can't get to work and stuff like that. Meanwhile, I do see a lot less problems with medical services. We've got some buildings that are destroyed for some unknown reason. And we have wind turbines with dead batteries. Probably because we're just not generating enough electricity. So the batteries always die on the power plants because they're not really producing enough electricity. So what we could do, though, and I think that's going to be important, is let's get these power plants, windmills, and we'll put them over on the edge of town. Because having them right over here by the freeway, we put them there because it's practical, but not because it really made any sense at the time. The reality is windmills don't get put in the middle of town. They always get put somewhere out in the countryside. So we're going to go ahead and put them over here, which is going to make a whole heck of a lot more sense than where they were, and probably make our city look a lot nicer as well. And we'll upgrade these. Having a few more windmills, probably a good thing. All right, so this is kind of cool. We got our power generation and our garbage processing and water generation. Really, all of our utilities are kind of clustered around this more rural area, off to the side, not in the middle of town. And then this open space is going to be really useful to have, because there's so many things we could do with it. We don't necessarily have to zone those areas, because, again, drawing off of a sort of a historical interest in creating a space that's realistic. Many times, maybe a factory or some old building or property would be abandoned, leaving an open space in a city. And that space would be redeveloped as maybe a college campus or some improved new building that would be more modern or something like that. So whenever we move something to a new place and leave a hole in the city, instead of zoning in it, what we want to do is leave those spaces so that they can be designed and filled in a mindful way. We do have a bus depot. So, it might be appropriate for us to have some buses. Now, I kind of wanted to get settled on what the street layout's going to look like before I planted too many bus routes. So we'll be a little modest about it. But there are some avenues here that are probably not going to change too much. And so I think it might be in order to at least have some bus service soon. I think I'd like to have bus service connecting the train station, this area, with the downtown area. So we have kind of two downtowns, if you will. The area right around the train station, and then we'll have the area or more by the waterfront. Probably eventually we'll have another urban space that is over by the ocean. So I can see this being sort of like a tri-cities kind of a area. We have a downtown area by the water, kind of a downtown area in the middle, and then probably our biggest, oldest, main part of downtown will be right out here by the riverfront. Then, of course, we have this industrial area, and that would be a major destination for mass transit. But one thing we might want to think about is, how about subway stations? Because we're early in the city's development. And what we can do is we can imagine maybe eliminating some surface streets and replace them with a subway route. And then put a pedestrian street above the subway route. Because you have to think about how subways, maybe they're just dug deep under a city, like New York, but they also might be more shallow, not too far underneath the surface, and they'd be kind of built in a sort of a trough, and then buried again. And if that's the case, then it would kind of stand to reason that we would want to plan our subway routes before we build an enormous metropolis over the top of them. Sometimes I think that one of the best things you can do for ideas is just to spend time looking at the city, getting a feel for, what would it be like to live there? What if you were a citizen there? What would frustrate you? What would inspire you? What would you like? What would you, be looking for? And to kind of contemplate those things. We have plenty of money coming in, so I'm not worried about that. One thing, though, in Skylines is that you do have to be careful about overcommitting on some of the big buildings, because you can wind up in a situation where you have buildings that are expensive to maintain, and you don't necessarily need the capacity. Like that hospital I was looking at right now, I like it. It's super cool, it's iconic, but I don't know that I necessarily need an enormous hospital like that right now. So I'm probably better off to just do something more modest, like another one of these, more like a medium-size hospital. And we do have, it seems like we have decent coverage for medical care, so I don't even know if I necessarily need to do that. I do think we will do the crematorium though, because right now all we have for death care is the cemetery. And this old crematorium, French style crematorium, can go like right in the middle of town, like right there. Fits in pretty well. We really don't have too many warning messages. Few abandoned buildings. I think our education system's a little bit lacking. We have a little bit of noise pollution. Air pollution is gone though, so that's good. There's a power line there that doesn't need to be there anymore. When we used to have a windmill there. But yeah, that's milestone 10. That's a pretty cool building. One of those new skyscrapers, I'm guessing. The Finansturum. Finansturum carries the peak office skyscraper design from 1980s Europe. Height 636 feet. Bell Creek Towers. Lighthouse Point. Emerald Towers. Sunset Brewery. Eclipse Nightlife. Imperium Plaza. Some nice new buildings. So definitely enough signature buildings being unlocked that we could spend some time using them to detail and create some unique, customized areas that feel distinctive. Mostly, I just want to kind of identify areas that don't feel interesting to me, that don't speak to me. Like, I like that neighborhood. I think that neighborhood with the farms around it looks pretty good. I like it. Those mid-rises look fine. But this area right here, like, I really don't like. I don't like that area very much at all. Because I feel like there should be more there. It should be denser. And it just looks kind of haphazard. So like, those row houses, I think they look good. But we need something to fill those blocks in a more mindful way. And we're not going to build a skyscraper. But how about some of these signature buildings we just unlocked? If we make a nice block out of some of those. Yeah, I think that could work. They don't match perfectly, but you know what? That's okay. I think it looks very respectable. Having a gap there, I wasn't sure if I liked it, but people being able to go in between there and access that space in the inner courtyard actually looks nice and it's functional. I tend to go light on the palm trees, but I'm thinking I'll try to make an exception to the rule. We will go ahead and have a few more palm trees in this build than we probably would in most of the builds I do, because I always think of myself as building in more temperate areas, not like tropical areas. So I don't put palm trees. But if we're building on the banks of the southern Mississippi Delta, then there's no reason why we shouldn't have a fair number of palm trees. And there we have a block, which actually looks pretty distinctive. Unique signature buildings. At a glance, it really kind of screams something unique. It's not overstated, but it definitely looks a lot better than what was there, or rather not there, before. I think we need some kind of emergency management buildings, because it's kind of obnoxious how whenever something goes abandoned or gets destroyed due to a natural disaster or fire or something, then you have to go through and delete old buildings. I downloaded the Arc de Triomphe monument, and I was thinking about putting it here, but then I thought, like, the more I think about it, the more I feel like I don't want to put a triumphal arch right in the middle of a traffic circle, because that's like where everybody would put a triumphal arch. I want it to be somewhere else. I want it to be in a place that makes a little bit more sense and feels a little more unique. And possibly this is where that should go. I like having this two one-way streets cutting through town, creating that sense of division with a pedestrian walkway down the middle. It just really kind of is a vibe I like. So I'm thinking we're going to just carry on with that thought and demolish some buildings here. Which is going to be fine. and extend this pedestrian walkway all the way through. And it'll be okay. We'll leave those row houses right there just because they kind of shake things up a little bit and add some distinctive flavor to the avenue. But that long boulevard really is gonna help us to make the city feel like, you know, it's a unique place. And then we're going to widen this street. So these are going to be 3-lane, one-way roads. No parking on the avenue. Well, now we kind of have this axis, and then we have that other central axis with the roundabout. And I think while the city's still young, we're going to expand the width of this street here. So 8 lanes, probably a little too much. 6 lanes, yeah, I think we can do a 6-lane road here. I'm gonna have to delete my overpass. That's all right though. Move a few of these signature buildings. Thing about widening roads is if you don't widen the roads at the beginning, it's going to be a lot harder to widen them later on. And maybe there is an allegory for life there too. Sometimes in life you need to do things sooner rather than later, because if you wait to do the big things until too much time has passed, it can become rather difficult. to find the space. Somebody was saying it's a shame that you don't have the option to build stairs in this game. And I thought about that. It's kind of true. Like, you can build ramps, but if it's a steep path, it would be cool if it would just kind of transform into a staircase. All right, there we go. Maybe it's not perfect, but pretty serviceable. Put a grass strip here because, or I guess we'll do trees. So I don't want people parked on this particular street. Grass and trees. There we go. Now that's starting to look a lot nicer. I wonder why are these, why is there noise pollution here? What's causing the noise pollution? Not super sure. Like, I guess maybe is it because there's an intersection there, or like why is there a noise pollution complaint? I wonder if the noise pollution would be less if we put a park there. Same thing. Now I can understand that. Noise pollution there because of the railroad tracks, probably. Now maybe. Not 100% sure. If we plant more trees, I think that trees are sound barriers. And they will help with that noise pollution issue. Not 100% sure, so, you know, don't hold me to it, but we probably should have at least some medical clinic over here by near the railroad. Now we have a pretty significant shortage of education capacity. People have been moving in. We now have 28,000 people living here and nowhere near enough schooling facilities. We don't have any college. So I'm thinking we'll go ahead and create the city's first college right there. Another nice building that fits in well with the old downtown district. And maybe a modern city high school. And we could actually put that right here in this park-like open space. And then we need at least one more primary school. So we can do elementary school there. Like we're still a little underwater on elementary school services. So maybe we'll do the old-fashioned legacy elementary school from the base game, only we'll put it over here. Because that fits in pretty well with kind of more of a rural vibe in this part of our town. You know, I'm not sure why I'm getting a pedestrian access problem there. Not super sure. There was a time when you could not delete sub-buildings in the game at all. Thankfully, that is no longer a problem. Why we can't build... Why there's no pedestrian access there, though, I don't know. That's all right. We'll let those sub buildings be kind of like a little campus. We still need one more high school. I guess as we build more schools, more people start going to school, which creates more demand. Something like that. Maybe a modern high school. We could put that over here. Kind of fills in this end of town a little bit. I guess these buildings just are not meant to be because noise pollution is going to be a problem there, so we'll go ahead and delete those noise pollution afflicted buildings because I can't seem to solve the problem. Maybe once people's ears get messed up, they're just going to be forever unhappy with ringing ears. Like PTSD from hearing the train go by outside your window. One time too many. All right. So the nice thing here is that at this particular moment, we have very few problems, error warnings, issues, miserable people, dead people. We do have a problem there, not enough customers at the Riverside Grill. Not quite sure how we would fix that issue, but you know what? I guess for the time being, we don't need to have the Riverside Grill. And as for people who have perished, I guess we could invest in one more new crematorium for our downtown area, because you know you don't want to shirk your duties in that department. And I think to fit the new crematorium in, we'll place it right there. which looks pretty nice. Crematorium doesn't really look like a crematorium, to be honest. It looks like a nice little meeting center or a town hall kind of building or a mayor's house. It could be so many different things. So that building fits in very well right there. What's going on there? Traffic accidents, traffic jams. So yeah, not a perfect city, but much, much better than it was when we started working on it a little bit ago. It's starting to feel like it's not just a haphazard mess. It feels a little bit more mindful and concerted than it did when we started. So I'll take it. As for what we're going to do next, I think probably next episode we'll work on bus routes. We'll continue to work on improving the traffic, and we'll continue to start adding more things into the downtown core, because that downtown area is really what's going to make or break everything else in the save. We want it to feel like a super cool, unique destination, and then we can start working to build out the rest of the city from there. In any case, it has been fun. Till next time, thanks so much for watching.